Having had the opportunity of seeing a little of the exhibition over the backs of New York's finest policemen, I can only say from what I saw, but I'd like to come back and see it for sure. And Governor Rockefeller and I were both agreeing that if we could have just commissioned the photographers as policemen, we could have reduced the size of the crowd by at least a half. In any event, it is a most admirable exhibition, and like His Royal Highness being somewhat of an expert at opening things, I can say this is one of the finest exhibitions, if not the finest, that I've had the privilege of participating in such opening ceremonies. And I urge all of you in this great audience who have not... It was so characteristic of the British tradition itself. Characteristic in the sense that it was well ordered and yet did not appear to be. Characteristic in the sense that with all of the massive displays of automobiles, and it occurs to me incidentally that when we think of British genius, they've had one effect. They've changed the whole character of Mr. Ford's automobile business as a result of their competition. Automobiles, their power stations, their scientific equipment, that then in the heart of the very floor where such exhibits appear, we find a little bit of England set there for everyone to see. And so I urge you to go and see for yourself. I will not spend longer now in describing it except to congratulate Lord Roots and all those who had something to do for bringing it here. And we Americans have many faults. Our faults generally are not of the heart. I think perhaps sometimes, being still a relatively young people, we are impatient when the policies that we adopt in world affairs, whether it's the Marshall Plan or any other great scheme designed to solve problems in this part of the world or the other, don't automatically solve those problems and create a world of peace and friendship and justice. And we sometimes become so impatient that we tend to give the impression that we may lack the stamina, we may lack the determination to live through adversity as our friends in Britain have lived through it for so many centuries, to live through it and to rise above it, always remembering that the principles for which we stand are, as Mr. Maudling so well and eloquently stated, principles that are worth fighting for, worth paying for, worth dying for if necessary. And so, as I speak today and as I think of those principles, I would like to relate them for just a moment to the exhibition itself. Certainly, that is not surpassed by any other nation in the free world. What do I speak of? We know here our British heritage, the common law, our Parliament, our legislature with its rules, many of them stemming from the British Parliament, the English language, which of course, if you have seen My Fair Lady, the professor says has never been spoken in America for years. But not only do we know it here, but if you look on this platform behind me, we realize that this tiny country, tiny certainly in land, and also small in terms of people, affects through its culture, the power of its ideas, the whole world, and affects it generally for good. As we move now in this post-summit period through the years ahead, recognizing that the conflict in which we're engaged is not going to be solved in 2 years, 5 years, perhaps not for a generation or even 50 years, recognizing that it is perhaps not going to be solved, and we hope certainly not through a war, militarily at least, but is more likely to be solved in the non-military area, let us never forget that we in the free world have something far more precious to offer than our great military strength, than our economic power. We have the power of ideas, ideas based on freedom, on justice, and recognition of the fundamental dignity of human beings throughout this earth. Power of ideas recognizing that every people has the right to choose the kind of government that it wants. Sense of purpose? Ah, yes, the communists have a sense of purpose. It is to rule the world, and it is strong, and it inspires them, and they work. But we must recognize that our sense of purpose, while it is not to rule the world, and we must certainly thank God for that, it is to free the world. It is to give to every people the power, the right of choice that we have, that we share. And I could not speak these words as an American.
And the serious business of science and industry on the other. Because whatever tourists or tourist guides may tell you, Britain is not just an old country of tottering ruins inhabited by idle roués in eyeglasses. Where yokels quaff ale by the tankard outside rickety pubs, and where all the soldiers are dressed in scarlet tunics and bearskin caps and spend their time marching up and down for the benefit of visitors from abroad. And Scotland, it's not entirely peopled by huge red-headed men in kilts and hairy legs. Who spend their time drinking whiskey when they're not playing the pipes or tossing the caber. And there are certainly several harps in Wales and many fine singers too. But the Eisteddfods are only a relaxation from work in coal mines and some of the most modern steel mills in the world. Now and don't be misled by what looks like old-fashioned pomp and pageantry, whether it be in the City of London or in Parliament, the Queen frequently takes part. Remember that these same people started the Industrial Revolution, built more and greater ships than any other nation in the world. And the flow of their money developed the New World, and given half a chance, their power station equipment finds its way even into American power stations. It is true, of course, that the plumbing in some of our older houses is not all that it might be. But that doesn't alter the fact that 3 out of every 5 gas turbines flying or on order in the entire Western world are British, or that 1/3 of the world's merchant tonnage is equipped with British radar. In that sense, the people of the United States are also sponsors of this exhibition.